candidates. We've got 6 candidates tonight. I got them all right. Richard Melezzo, Robert Perkins, Patricia Brooks, Joe Prodrowski, Tony Petronis, and Susan Novell. We have one other candidate, Glenn Zaborski, that's not here tonight. There will be chances for questions at the end, so we'll get to that at the end when we get to that stage. The candidates will have, depending on the question, 2 or 3 minutes for each session. We'll start with a different candidate in each one, and we're going to go probably for about 92, an hour, 2 hours, 45 minutes. So, opening questions, opening statements. We'll start with you. Yes, sir.
Who's got the time signals back there? Can we see what they look like from here?
Okay. So we're going to have to pass mics, and we do need the mics so that we get it all on film. So.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Richard Melezzo. I'm a trial attorney here in Reno, Nevada, growing up here in Reno, Nevada. I've only been in the community for about 9 months. And the motivation for my volunteerism in this case is bitterness on my part. Having briefly moved into Somersett, the first 2 weeks of my stay, I was getting notices on my car in reference to parking on the street, as opposed to a human being reaching out to me and saying, welcome, you shouldn't park on the street. Now, my bitterness turned into really an activism whereby I wanted to reach out to the homeowners who felt that when you get an envelope from Somersett folks, you don't have to be terrified. And I still am a little afraid when I get those envelopes. Now, pursuant to the Landscape Authority, I absolutely support that. And I verified that through blueprints and all that kind of thing. And then they came back at the appropriate time and did a review. And there was a couple of things I had to change. I'm okay with that. And maybe I'm reaching too far. Maybe it's too difficult for a board member to call a homeowner and welcome them. And to make time, maybe an hour out of the month, to sit down and say, we're looking for A, B, and C. So the primary reason I would ever want to be involved is really a TLC dynamic. It's transparency, isn't it? It's transparency. And then L for logic. Logic is a huge factor in my craft as a profession, and I employ that here. And then basically communication. I mean, the whole motivation for me is to make citizens between the communities respectful of each other, of course, courteous to one another at all times, and for the board to do more. It's a simple matter to pick up the phone. Me as a newbie 9 months ago with that little note on my car, oh my God, my world came down, the jury came back within 3 minutes. So that was strange to me. And as a communication type person, I just felt that standards could change. And we can talk to one another, we can reach out to one another. And it should be a simple matter. Not everybody is eloquent speaking with folks. I certainly have my problems. Not everybody's going to reach out and say, hey, those lights that are dirty in the sky, because it's a dark community, need to be moved. But it's a simple matter to say, hey, welcome. Those lights are interesting. We share a couple moments, and I'm Rich Melezzo, a committee person, can I come and talk to you about that? So that's really what it is. It's really a TLC dynamic that needs to be employed, in my opinion. I've only been here 9 months. I'm not looking for dramatic change. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bob Perkins, and I would like to vote for the Somersett Owners Association Board of Directors. I've only been here about 2 years, moved up from Arizona, but we've been coming to Reno since 2001 for hot August nights. We enjoyed the area, we enjoyed the people. People were friendly, easy to get along with, and that's one of the reasons we moved here. I'd like to be your representative so that I could help get the community back together from being divided over this golf course issue. I think what's been done has been done. We should all move along, and whatever the voters vote, that's the way it's gonna be, you know. I have no agenda, I don't really care one way or the other, but it needs to be done right, and the voters' voice needs to be recognized and proceed on. I'd just like to get back to having more respectful communication between each other and focus on the issues at hand. Some of the issues that I see that need addressed in this community, we have a safety issue, we have a landscape issue, which is the gardeners and the water waste. Anybody that's been here through the summer can see how much water gets wasted. It's costing us money. You can just look at it, that's our dollars running down the road. So I think we need to work on that, and we also need to work on communication. I finally got a login so that I can get on the Somersett.com website. It was a tough battle, but I made it. That needs to be available for everybody so that they can see what's going on, and we don't have to take guesses and people make comments that you don't know that are true or not true or whatever. We need to have an open forum so that you can ask questions on the website. Someone in authority, board of directors, or somebody whose area of expertise it is, can give an answer. So everybody knows what's going on and we don't have to go by what somebody thinks. Here again, I appreciate your vote, and thanks for coming tonight. Get a better turnout than we had Saturday or Sunday. Guess that's the 49ers are playing. Thanks.
Good evening, I'm Patricia Brooks. My husband and I have lived in Somerset since 2006, and we own 2 homes here. One of them is on the golf course in Talon Point, and the other one is in Dove Mountain. I'm a board candidate because I'm interested in the future of the community overall, and I want to see our property values maintained. My basic background is in chemistry, so things like the landscape issues of water usage, both now and how we'll do it in the future, are my main areas of interest, but with the board I'd be willing to serve in any area and do it with integrity. The flood, in order to really do some of these things, we really need to focus on HOA matters, and you know, the golf course purchase has been, you know, somewhat distracting from our regular items that we need to take care of. For instance, the flood of a couple of months ago caused a lot of landscape damage, and quite a bit of it actually remains. There are areas of runoff that have not been raked and recovered with rock, and if we get another heavy rain, you know, I was worried about it last night actually, but those things are gonna, you know, spill out onto the roads further and deteriorate further. And we need to pay attention to these things because, you know, it's probably more important that we maintain the facilities that we have than we worry about how the golf course, or if it reverted back to the developer for building homes. We shouldn't worry about those things as much as just the general impression people get when they drive in here. Our community is now about 10 years old, and I don't think it should look like it's 10 years old. I think it should look like it's new and fresh and looking to the future on how to do things. Just like everyone else, I'm concerned about the safety and security issues. A lot of people have codes to the security gates in those areas. And the roundabouts and crosswalks aren't safe either. And I think we need cameras in some of these areas to capture the license plates of people going in and out so that we can see who some of the offenders are, and hopefully more signs to prevent serious accidents. You know, the issue of shared amenities between our communities is something that I think that's important. and should always be discussed. I'm not sure, we need to know when the times line up amongst the communities to do these things. I don't think right now is the time to really worry about that, but I think ongoing discussions about what each of the communities would like is important. I think we have more than one path to our future, and good communication and community involvement are everything. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Joe Fedorowski, and my thanks to the committee for hosting this event, and especially to you in the audience for attending and showing your interest. Unfortunately, sometimes I think there's more people out there at our Tuesday night mixer than are in here for this, I think, important occasion. My wife Judy and I believe Somersett is one of the most desirable planned communities in Reno. If elected, I will continue to work on improving the common area maintenance and safety. I also support continuing enhancement of our recreation activities and amenities to the standards that we should expect for our community. As Somersett continues to grow, I believe I can work to accomplish this without assessment increases. I value your time and I value my time. Accordingly, I believe that association meetings should be conducted in a business-like manner and very efficiently conducted. For board meetings, owner comments are welcome at the beginning of the meeting and at the end of the meeting. During the meeting, a matter among the directors should be discussed and openly debated only after a motion has been made and seconded. Then, after open discussion and an unbiased analysis, decisions should be based on the merits of what is best for the entire community. I have served as a director and officer for many homeowners associations, ranging from several hundred units to several thousand units. Most recently, I volunteered to serve on the 2013 and 2014 Somersett Finance Committee. There we review the monthly financial statements in depth, and we take the lead in preparing the annual budget for the Somersett Board's consideration and approval. I also serve as the director and treasurer for the Sierra Canyon Association. These experiences, coupled with my financial background as a CPA in education with a bachelor's in business administration and a legal education and Juris Doctorate, plus some 40+ years of business and real estate experience have prepared me to be an effective Somersett board member. Somersett Owners Association is a complex major business with $5 million in annual revenues and $13 million in assets. It requires and deserves the best management and financial talent available to oversee its activities. I have the time and the skills to constructively assist the board in dealing with the many difficult and varied financial, legal, business, and technical issues it faces, and to help protect and enhance not only the value of your home and our home investments, but the quality of life we enjoy as well.
Good evening, I'm Tony Flaconis, and first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I think these kinds of events are extremely important to our community. As many of you know me, I see a lot of faces that I've seen at many meetings. I have been the president of the Somersett Owners Association since we took it over from the developer in January of 2013. I originally ran the first time on the idea that I believe in the vision of Somersett. I think, like probably a lot of you, I ended up moving here because of what I saw when I came and visited Somersett. And I think we are a premier community in Northern Nevada, and I think that we want to keep it that way. And so that's kind of my focus. In the 2 years that we've had the Homeowners Association run by homeowners, I think we've made a lot of progress. And we've made progress in the direction of trying to put the association on a path that is sustainable for how it can work over a long period of time to maintain the standards that we want. I will tell you, it was a big challenge in the sense that when the developer controlled the board, not surprisingly, the focus was fairly short-term. And the focus was on getting the community built out. There were a lot of things that should have been done that weren't done. There were a lot of systems that were set up with a very short-term focus. So I think in the last 2 years, we've actually made a lot of progress, and I'm very pleased to run on my record and have you judge me that way. When the first homeowner board took over, we had to prioritize what were we going to focus on. Some of the things I think we've made big progress on is we've substantially expanded the opportunity for owners to be involved in the association. The finance committee, which used to be a copy of the board, is now homeowners, and they're running it, they're making decisions. We have board members who act as liaisons on the committee, as we do for all committees. But we've got that. We set up a strategic planning committee, which the organization has never had. Because again, I think all of our outlooks have to be long-term. If we're going to plan to maintain a top community, it's more than a one-year-at-a-time type planning. So we've started putting that in place. We started doing things right away to improve the environment. For example, we took back over the Canyon View room. We finally got the front-end landscaping put in. It was looking pretty bad there for a couple of years. We've expanded some of the landscape programs. We've also concluded some long-term legal issues with, for example, the Moana suit, where we successfully recovered every penny the association paid for repairs, for legal fees, for consultants, for all that stuff, plus we recovered over $100,000 for future repairs that may come up. We settled a lawsuit, and we recovered legal fees. And the reason I'm here, though, is that there's still more to be done. I think we've got on the right path, but there's some things I'd like to finish and hopefully be able to talk about that.
Hi, I'm Susan Nobel, and thank you all for coming out today. There's several of you that have been at both of these, and that's quite a commitment that you've made to finding out exactly who should be running on your board. My husband and I purchased here in Somersett about 4 years ago. We remodeled our place, and then we moved here full-time about 2 years ago. Maybe I've lived in Flatland a whole lot more than the rest of the people that are on this board, but I have to tell you, I don't drive in or out of this community when I don't see some beauty that I can't see anywhere else. But let me tell you just a little bit about myself, since I'm one of the newer people to the community. My background has been challenging and diverse, and my work experience has given me a wide range of experience. I've been a college professor. I've been in the cable television industry for 18 years. I have been with AT&T for over 20 years. And during those 40 plus years of being a businesswoman, I have taught communications, public speaking, and journalism. I have marketed cable television, local toll, and operator services. That gives you a little hint as to how old I am. I have launched Cinemax, long distance, Uverse, and most recently, mobile payments to your phone. So you could use your phone to go and pay for something at a Macy's or a Jamba Juice or different places like that. I have negotiated numerous contracts. And I have been challenged with multiple cultural changes as I have gone through all of this. As you know, AT&T was broken up. There was Pacific Bell when I joined it. It moved into SBC, and now it's back to being AT&T. I've moved 19 times as an adult, and that gives me the knowledge of how to pack a box. But it also gives me the knowledge of what to look for in real estate. And when we were looking for real estate, we looked at this community based on the idea that it had all of these amenities that are here for us and the beauty of those amenities. I have worked for a joint venture between 3 fierce competitors, so I know what controversy is. Imagine trying to put together a business with AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. But one thing has remained constant in my approach. Whenever I've had teams, I like to listen first to everybody's ideas. one of the greatest things is that you all have different experiences and therefore you have different ways of thinking. That brings you with different ideas. And that's a great thing, because what that means is that it builds the best solutions if you're listening to what everyone has to say. Eventually, a decision has to be made. So it's not my agenda, but all of your agenda that I'm running for the board.
When we set these meetings up, I knew that on Sunday we were probably going to fight football, but I didn't know we were going to fight baseball World Series for the second time. I know, I saw it. But then I thought Sierra Canyon really had it knocked. They really got it down. They had food and drink. They could get people here. They're still out there. So this next question, I'm gonna reduce it down to 2 minutes because this is the easiest of the questions, I think. And then we'll add some time into some of the others. There's been how much of your time do you believe a board position will require on a weekly basis? Which of the following committees do you envision contributing to? Community standards, finance and budget, communications, strategic planning, community activities? And do you see any need for additional activities? And I think we'll start with you, Bob.
You know, it's hard to say how much time is really going to be required, especially since I've never had this position before. But since I'm retired, I've got more time and things to do. So I'll set aside all the time that's needed to perform the duties of the board. And I know there's going to be a lot of hours involved, especially in the beginning if the golf course ballot issue passes, because we're going to have a busy 90 days doing the due diligence before all the paperwork is signed and everything's put into place. I think that I can contribute on the Community Standards Committee, Strategic Planning, and the Safety Committee. I know now at this point there is no Safety Committee, but I'd like to see a Safety Committee started to interact with the city of Reno in the areas that they have control over but affect us. For instance, we need better crosswalk identification and lighting like they have downtown Reno, especially at TC when you go from there over to the park. People coming around the roundabout where they speed anyway, they don't see it until it's too late, and somebody's going to get hurt. So we need to take some action there. Also, I live here in Sierra Canyon, and I live on Del Webb Parkway, and you see how big a hill that it is. The bicyclists, they haul coming down this hill. I'm almost pulled out in front of 2 of them coming out of the driveway because you can't see them. The speed limit is 25, and they're doing probably 30, 35 miles an hour, however fast they can go. So I think that needs to be addressed. And also, speaking of speed, I drove up Del Webb Parkway today just looking. There is no speed limit sign, so I guess you do whatever you think you can get away with. So we need to address that with the city of Reno also, since that is a Reno street. Thank you.
Well, excuse me, one of the things that I think needs to be fine-tuned is definitely communication, and I'm not sure exactly how that should be done, but maybe it should be done, maybe there should be like group meetings for your own little community or section that you live in, somebody that disseminates what's going on if you haven't been to the, to the monthly meetings where the public can attend. So I think that's really important because community involvement is the key to making a successful community. And then with regard to landscape and water usage, this is very important. We possibly should even be looking at designing even more desert-style landscaping. There's no indication at the moment that we're gonna be abandoning drought anytime soon. And, you know, maybe we don't need as much grass in our community, and, you know, maybe there are other ways to reduce water usage. So I'm interested in that, and that, you know, that needs a new committee. You know, I had put down a safety committee as well, so I'm not really gonna go over that. Yeah, I don't know, we need more community input on what committees we should have. Maybe there should even be a committee on communicating between, you know, the Sierra Canyon, Del Webb area and Somersett on what new amenities could be shared. I mean, that would be something that I look forward to working on. That's pretty much it.
How much time weekly, I think, was the first question. But on average, my experience has been on an association like this and having some experience on the finance committee about 15 hours a week. And that can vary from 4 or 5 hours a week to 40 plus hours a week, depending on whether it's budget time or whatever the crunch is at the time. Obviously, I'm running, therefore I'm willing to commit the time that it takes to do the job correctly. I would like to continue with the Finance Committee to keep in touch with the budgeting, the annual audit, the reserve studies, the reserve fund investments, debt management, collection of delinquent accounts, and long-range financial planning. I'm also willing to serve in any other areas where my skills are a good fit, such as dispute resolution, mediation, oversight of legal counsel or consultants, and with real estate and other contracts. As far as new committees, I mean, we probably could come up with many committees, but the one that seems most pressing to me is a landscape committee. On an annual basis, the association spends over $400,000 on water and over $600,000 on landscaping. So that, to me, says that's like 1/5 of our budget. That definitely needs some additional oversight. Hopefully, this committee would be comprised mostly of residents who are master gardeners. And I believe that this committee, working together with professional consultants, a dedicated staff member, Somersett staff member, together could significantly improve the results we're getting while remaining well under the $1 million that we're spending. This committee could also assist in researching advances in new technology, such as weather sensing irrigation controllers. My time is up.
Well, I can tell you in terms of time commitment that as president, I've been spending most weeks between 35 and 40 hours on this. Some weeks more, occasional weeks less. But I will admit that I get all the first calls generally before the rest of the board even hears about stuff. That's just part of the role. In terms of the committees, I currently work with the Strategic Planning Committee and the Community Standards Committee. But the thing I would say is I do think there's some need for possibly some more committees, but the first focus ought to be on fine-tuning and getting the most out of the committees that we have. And I think we've made a lot of progress on that, but I think there's a number of things that I think can be done to even go further with the Finance Committee, for example, and the amount of oversight and control that they can exert. They've taken on quite a role with some of the big contracts like landscaping, and I think we can take that to another level. I think the Communications Committee is one that's very important, and they in fact have made some recommendations to the board, and we are starting to work on some of those, including how to upgrade our systems from the 3 independent systems that we now have that don't talk to each other, to bring all that together so that we can have better access by everybody to the website. We can set up discussion forums, things like that. That is all underway right now. And I'll also say, for people that may remember, The Strategic Planning Committee earlier this year made some recommendations, which I think ought to be a focus for 2015, including, there was one recommendation to see if there would be interest in setting up a joint committee with Sierra Canyon for planning and looking at longer-term issues. And there's a recommendation on a government relation type of committee to get tied in more with Reno and Washoe County and so forth. And I'm out of time, but that's kind of my...
Well, under normal circumstances, I wouldn't expect that it's going to take 35 to 40 hours worth of work every single week. It concerns me. It actually concerns me that for a volunteer perspective that it would take as much time as that. And maybe there's a few more efficient ways for us to look at that and depend on our committees a little bit more in terms of helping to make those decisions and bring those things to the forefront. And to our management group that is involved in our development. But I think it's no surprise to you that my skill set is with communications and strategic planning. I would also be interested, no one's mentioned it, but community activities. There is a question that we're going to get to as to how do we get more people involved. Well, community activities is a nice way of getting more people involved in our community. But when it comes to communications, is probably one thing that is my belief is nothing is off limits. In other words, we tell the homeowners what is going on, and we do that in the most efficient manner. Sometimes communications are there, but there's too much of it. In other words, you have to dig through all of the communications to figure out what you really want to know. And so we have to figure out a way to be more efficient in putting that and deliver it and position it very quickly so that you can understand what is going on in your community. So I think that there are lots of different committees that could be brought to the forefront. I'd like to, like Tony, see some of the committees that are already there because there's a great list of people there become more effective.
You know, I heard the number in reference to the time that maybe is necessary for a weekly effort, 30, 40 hours, I find fascinating. I can't imagine why, unless there's a special vote or a major issue on the table, more than 5 to 10 hours is necessary for a weekly effort. Now, the benefit of having an individual like myself who has not been on a committee before, I'm not tainted by prior protocol. I envision basically the standards that we set in both communities, or all three communities, if you will, need to be cohabitating together logically. And that's my buzzword. I got that from law school. That's my buzzword, is logic. And in reference to the standards and the efforts that we need to commit to one another regarding maybe additional committees, I see no reason whatsoever for additional committees. I think the committees, as are phrased here, look absolutely practical, absolutely important, and absolutely a structure that can complete what is necessary for harmony. And as my colleagues down the line here expressed, after she spoke, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, I was ready to vote for you immediately. Her communication skill set, and I think I have a big reservoir of that as well, can really trip over into multiple committees. And that's what it's really all about. Don't overthink this stuff. Now, the financial issues and the budget communications, to have a skilled person, which I am not a tax attorney, would be a marvelous addition. But logic and not overthinking is really the key to success, in my opinion. Thank you for your time.
You know, sometimes it's difficult to realize we've only owned this community ourselves for what, 2 years? And that means there's still a lot of strategic issues that we still have to face in the community. And I'll say this even though I've been told not to. There is a vote going on, so if you haven't voted, please vote and get your neighbors to vote. Do that. So, I'm going to add 30 seconds into this discussion. There's been much discussion with regard to the agreements between the SOA and the SGCC. If the proposed purchase agreement is approved, what is your position on how the SOA would govern this relationship? In the event the purchase agreement is disapproved, what is your position on continuing relations with the SGCC? And Patricia, we're going to start with you. Good.
Well, if the purchase is approved, I would follow up with all of the obligations, with evaluation of all of the obligations of the lessee, and that's been spelled out. So that would govern my relationship under those circumstances. If it doesn't pass, and until the due diligence and everything is complete, I continue to oppose that purchase. And so, I would do nothing basically. I'd wait and see until all of the facts and all of the votes and all of the due diligence was complete. As I'm sitting here, I'm thinking that and I want to tell you why I would oppose this until everything is said and done, and that is because even the attorney's letter to the SOA does not give us definitive proof about what we can use the property for once we own it. And it's a $2+ million expenditure. I think we ought to know for sure what we can do with it before we own it. But if everything goes through and it's everybody's wish that we do own it, goes through, I'm going to conform to whatever needs to be done.
If the deal goes through, there is no provision in the sale and leaseback agreement or other agreements for the Somersett Association to govern the relationship. To do so would likely introduce some liability to the association for whatever happens to the country club, and we don't want that. I believe there should be a constructive relationship between the two boards. For example, I would hope that the country club would be open to listening to comments that the association might have regarding the design and construction of their clubhouse, or a clubhouse, should one be constructed. Besides collecting the rent, which is one of the things that we would be doing in the sale and leaseback, we would also want to ensure that the Somersett owners receive the benefits that are outlined in the agreements. I don't see the association having any further financial dealings with the country club beyond what's explicitly contained in the agreement. Independent of trying to govern the country club, the association does need to expand the details of its Plan B options in the event that the country club fails. The simplest option is to convert the course into a green space, much like Coughlin Ranch, preserving the landscaping much as it is, except of course there would be no continuing need for manicured greens. And consideration could be given to some winter uses by the owner membership of Somersett. I do not support any notion that the association would operate the 18-hole golf course. If the purchase is not approved, I am not in favor of any community access lease. In other words, not going back to where we've come from. It's not at all clear that all the necessary elements for a transaction will still be available, particularly the developer's reverter rights to the land and the water rights. I am distressed over the animosity and ill will that this issue has fostered. For me, it is not personal. It is a business decision. Okay? Is the price reasonable? And does the proposed transaction have a legitimate purpose that provides value to Somersett owners and has benefits for the future of the community? This is a democracy. I respect the way everyone wants to vote for or against. So that's my time's up.
I believe that the outcome of this vote, or what you all are deciding right now, is one of the most important strategic issues that Somersett will face for quite some time. People still want to focus on the golf course and so forth. This deal is not about a golf course. This deal is about if something happens to the country club, who gets to make decisions about what happens to all that land and all that water that's critical to the way Somersett looks right now. Right now, if we do nothing or if this vote's rejected, ultimately that decision gets to be made by the developer, because under the current arrangements, everything reverts back to him at some point. So if you really believe that the country club is not viable on a long-term basis, then the inevitable conclusion is you expect that the developer is going to make the decisions, and you think that's better than having homeowners make the decisions. Because that's what this vote is really about. If it does pass, I think there's two things need to happen. One is, as was mentioned earlier, there are a number of provisions in the contract that we tried to make very clear as to what we could do for monitoring and under which conditions we can modify the lease or terminate the lease. So we need to monitor what's going on to make sure that the country club lives up to its obligations under the contracts. The second thing I would do is I would immediately pass the strategic planning committee with developing a reasonable number of future scenarios with community input to judge what can happen. What we've done so far is put a bracket around kind of the extreme upper end of what it would cost to operate. If you all decided, and I think this would be a community decision, that you want the association to operate the course exactly the way it is now as a country club with everybody using it free. We did not pursue that because we don't think that's what the community wants right now. But that's the one end. The other end is just letting it grow green. But there are an infinite number of possibilities. So there is time for the strategic planning committee to gather community input and work out scenarios such that if we do need to have a vote relatively quickly, whether it's 2 years from now, 5 years from now, whatever, the information is already there to make a decision. If it doesn't pass, then I think we've got to start figuring out how to deal with some of these strategic issues, which we may not have the opportunity that we have right now.
If the passage is successful, I guess I feel like both sides of this, the country club and the homeowners association, want to have a good relationship. So there needs to be a liaison between those two entities to bring the community back together again if this passage happens. I'd like to just say one thing though, in terms of this agreement. If you look at this as just a purchase of land, forget the water, which has great value. We are paying $2.75 million for 223 acres of land. That is $12,331 per acre. I am in the process of buying a quarter of an acre in Minnesota for a leach bed. That's the only reason for it, for $9,000. So when you look at the value that we're putting here in terms of how much it is costing us to purchase this land, which all of us know real estate, we wouldn't be here if real estate wasn't valuable. Real estate is extremely valuable. Our house sits on a third of an acre and is valued at just the land is valued at $79,000 in Somersett. So when we're looking at this, worst case, Tony kind of laid out, if we could run the golf course, which I don't think anyone wants to do, or we could let it go like Northgate, which I don't think any of us want either. But if we wanted to, we could sell a portion of this land to a developer at a profit. There's no doubt. But even if we didn't, even if we brought that portion of the land into Somersett, which right now it wouldn't. It would be outside of Somersett's control. We would receive, if we made it a third of an acre and sold off 100 acres,
That's 300 plots of land. We would bring in $720,000 a year in homeowners association dues. So from a business perspective, like Joe mentioned, like Tony's mentioned, just from a business point of view, this is a good deal. If it doesn't succeed, if the vote is elsewhere, we have to do contingency planning.
My posture in relation to the golf course, the ribbons of green, I think it's vital. I am a golfer and I hate the game. They've asked me to re-up my membership up there, and without hesitation I said, no chance. So I'm not motivated by the obsession of the game, but I am motivated by the green ribbons. And make no mistake, I grew up in this city. DeAndrea, Northgate, if we don't control it and it fails, it'll be a bitter taste for generations. And the simple fact of it is, if we control it, we can divest ourselves of a golf course if that's not what we want, provided we can keep it a green space. What a marvelous space it would be for the non-golfers, not about to get there pretty quick, to have an area that looks like Collin Ranch, which is fantastic. It would be in our best interest, logically, to keep that ribbon of green viable as simply what it is, grass, manicured, and see where we go from there. Because that is one of the main factors, at least for even the non-golfer, I would submit respectfully, that's the main factor when they come up here, it just looks marvelous. Whether it's golf, whether it's a park, doesn't matter. But we must maintain control of it. Make no mistake, it's a necessity. As bitter as it may be down the road, financial issues, I think my colleague down the table there had a fantastic idea, maybe to have a liaison to communicate with the folks up there. If it passes, I'm completely in support of it. If it fails to pass, and I'm parodying another colleague with the bitterness that I've heard, is actually amazing to me. How it's gone. If it fails to pass, then we just have to support it as best we can, and again, we have to communicate as best we can. But I shudder to think that it fails. I hope it doesn't, and so I'm in full support of it. Thank you. Thank you.
As far as the purchase agreement for the golf course goes, the majority is going to rule whatever happens. However, if the purchase agreement does go through, we need to do our 90 days due diligence to see exactly what are we buying, what are our legal rights with the land, the water use, and what can we do with it. As was mentioned down the table, can we sell some of the land and have developer build houses? Will that be allowed? Does it have to stay a green space? Do we have to maintain it as a golf course, or do we just maintain it as a green area, which would be the cheapest alternative, just to maintain it as green space, common area? That needs to be known so that the strategic planning committee can know what to plan for in case the golf course does fail. We have to have a known that this is an asset we're buying. We need to know what we're buying and what can we do with it to determine what the value is to us. It's our money, the owners in Somersett, that's getting spent. So the board of directors needs to make sure we know where it's going and what we can do with it. On the other side of the coin, if the agreement doesn't pass, we need to let the golf course run itself. I've been in meetings on the pros and cons of buying the golf course area, and the golf course authority says that they're a viable entity, that they can make the money. They're profitable without us supplementing their income by giving them the money to use user agreement, things that we really don't use. So whatever happens, happens, but I'll support whichever way it goes and do due diligence to make sure we're getting our money's worth. Thank you.
Kind of related to that question is the next question. I've heard a lot about this at various wine tastings and other social events, so we'll get it on the board. Do you feel any portion of the Somersett community is over or underserved with regard to amenities or services? What suggestions would you have in this regard? Would you support collaborative planning for future amenities and recreational activities? And collaborative is inclusive, includes the city as well as both parts of Somerset. Would you support shared amenities between the club and town center and Aspen Lodge? And we're going to hold this in 2.5 minutes, and we'll start with Joe.
Well, that's a whole bunch of questions. Homeowner surveys have been a valuable tool in assessing this question. The improvements that have been most often requested were in the areas of aquatics, cardio equipment, trail systems, and security. I am in favor of making improvements in these areas, and I am in favor of the association acquiring a vacant lot in the town center for future expansion. Monitoring complaints is another valuable tool for evaluating this area. For instance, the pace of growth of new homes picked up in several of the neighborhoods or villages, and the fixed landscaping contract was not keeping up with the improvements. The complaints came in, so changes were made. There has been some anecdotal sentiment that golf amenities are adequately served and that new amenities should focus on other areas. I agree that new amenities should focus on other areas besides golf. There are some yet to be approved city park areas in Somerset. The association should, of course, be involved in working collaboratively with government to have these amenities developed. While performance on landscaping contracts and some other services can and should be improved, I don't consider that as part of the community being under or overserved per se. This is just a matter of everyone doing their job and holding vendors accountable. It does not require significant new resources. Long-range planning and periodic surveys should always be tools for measuring and responding to changing preferences over time. With respect to shared amenities between the club at Town Center and Aspen Lodge, I am not opposed to the concept. However, from a priority standpoint, it appears to me that both TCTC and Aspen Lodge need significant capital improvements just to meet the needs of their respective constituencies. That is where I believe our focus should be right now. Former Sierra Canyon directors rightfully wanted to provide input to shared amenities that were forced upon the association by the developer under the community access lease agreement. Under that lease agreement, Sierra Canyon owners were paying some $144,000 a year. Getting something, anything, in return for Sierra Canyon owners was important. But that is not the case today.
My answer to this question is I think every portion of Somerset is underserved. And the reason I say that is we have some wonderful amenities here, but we've got a rapidly growing community as well. I know that down here in Sierra Canyon, you guys have some real growing pains with regard to the adequacy of this facility. We're starting to see the same thing up at Town Center. I think that to maintain Somerset as a really premier first-class planned community in northern Nevada, we need to be constantly looking not only at maintaining and improving the facilities we have, but constantly looking at the potential for new amenities in order to get even more breadth of ownership using different parts of the community. So, and we've taken steps in that regard. We commissioned that first ever all homeowner survey, which has been cited, that we know what people think about current amenities and where the choke points are coming out pretty quickly. The board a couple of meetings ago approved a consulting contract for the strategic planning committee, and there's a consultant working right now to hopefully help us lay out some better projections about when we should plan for things, as well as to bring in some ideas that we may not have or have been able to generate through the survey or through the strategic planning committee's work. I think that I'm a big believer in collaborative planning. I do not believe in forcing people to participate. And we've also already done some of that with Sierra Canyon. We had the homeowner board members participate earlier last year when we were looking at some options for things like pickleball or other kinds of courts. We asked recently, in terms of buying the lot up there, if Sierra Canyon was interested in participating. They said they thought it was a good idea to buy it. They didn't want to really be involved, and we said fine with that. I think that we need to keep looking at these things, and I do think there's a role for shared amenities. Some ideas that have been suggested before were things like a leash-free dog park, so you can run dogs off leash. Community gardens. I mean, I'm not suggesting that any of these are the right ideas. I'm just saying I think there are ideas, and I think we need to have more discussions on an ongoing basis to make sure we have the right time and the right kinds of amenities to involve everybody in the community. Thank you.
So this indeed is a multifaceted question, and it deserves some considerable research. I'm glad to hear that there is going to be a consultant that's going to help with this, because one of my greatest concerns when it comes to this very question is, do we have the complete view? By just getting a survey, and I think that, it was brought to my attention that 25% of the homeowners responded to that. That's a great start. 25% is an incredible amount. As a marketer, you normally see 6 to 10% responding to a survey. But I also would like to know the demographics of who responded to that survey, because we have a very diverse community. Do we hear from every single one of the groups? We have snowbirds, we have renters, we have young families, we have families with teens, we have empty nesters, we have retirees. When we were walking our neighborhood talking about this vote, we met a young man who said, I don't feel part of this community. I'm a very young individual who's been able to purchase here, and I don't use any of your amenities because I don't feel part of it. So my thought is that we need more people participating in that, so that we don't create even more of an underserved community of different individuals with this very question. As far as sharing facilities with Aspen Lodge, when my husband and I decided to buy here, we had the opportunity of looking at a Del Webb. We could buy it. We didn't do that, but if I had, I would want all of the people within this community to say whether they wanted to share facilities between each other, because there are reasons why you bought in the community that you bought in. So that's a very important consideration. And as a marketer, I could launch a product all day and you wouldn't buy it because I didn't ask you whether you needed it or not. That's what we do as marketers, is we try to find out what is the ideas of the community so that we can be successful.
In my brief time here, the 9 months that I've been privileged to live here, I can't see anything at this point that we have too much of. What I can see is really an underserved dynamic throughout the communities. And to get a full picture of what is necessary, marketing research is necessary to pursue and see what folks have to say. Just coming from a personal basis, how I feel inside, how I feel internally as I live here. Yeah, we could use the bigger clubhouse at the town center. The lighting issue on the street scares the hell out of me. These turnabouts, and I'm a responsible driver, these turnabouts are no joke. And so there's certain things that we need to do to kind of make it a safer environment. And in reference to just a thumb sketch of amenities that are primary concern to me as a human being are the lighting dynamics on the road, which you can get the solar lamps, doesn't cost any electricity. And the improvement of the town center, which is a necessity, in my opinion. I don't use it, and I work out, but I don't use it. It's just too small, too many folks there. In relation to but like we're talking about, it's really, what the hell do you guys want? What does the young person, the 25-year-old that has the privilege to afford a home up here want? And what does some person like me, 52 years of age, finally get into the point where I can get a home up here? What do I want? So let's do that structure, let's do that analysis, and it's going to take a lot of work, Just give me your opinions. What do you want, right? Isn't that the primary question? In relation to the dynamic between the club at Town Center and the Aspen Lodge, what a marvelous concept. But in reality, do we want each other? And I think as human beings, we're preconceived, and the human condition says yes. But there's a certain different dynamic up here than maybe down to the town center. So to be collaborative, to work together, and to share things would be fantastic. But it would have to be really something that both tribes would want to look into. And that would be a gift if we could come together and share things in the future. Thank you.
As far as services, underservice, I would have to say the biggest one that I see is the landscaping and the water usage. It's like was said, it's 20% of our budget. We spend $1 million a year on landscaping and irrigation. And I don't think we're getting the bang for our buck. Right now, the way that it's set up and has been going for the last 10 years, I don't think it's working for people that have the oversight. Through personal experience dealing with one of the people that has oversight, you don't have a clue. We need to get a landscaping committee, maybe a arborist, and 2 other people on the board to oversee the contract that's going out for bid, make sure it's what we need and what we want, and see that we're getting results for what we're paying for. Right now, you drive through the community, it's not as bad up in Somersett. You come down into the Sierra Canyon, you can see the trees and stuff are dying. During the summer, there was areas that the grass wasn't even getting watered, it was dying in the common areas. The trees weren't getting watered. As far as I can see, what's going on with the tree situation, they just let it go, they just let it die. What we need to do, trees are expensive. You need to have someone in a position of authority that can make recommendations, what has to be done. You got a tree that's sick, that's dying, we need to fix the tree. Don't just let it sit there and die and then cut it down, dig it out, and plant something else. That's your money that's going away. So we need to look into that and get results for what we're paying our money for. As far as collaboration, I would support collaboration on community common areas. What's the common area that needs to be used? As was said before, Aspen Lodge and TCTC, they're too small for their own group. They need to we need to take care of the problems in each area before we even have any thought of sharing them. Looks like I'm getting the red light. Thank you.
Well, it looks like we need an awful lot of market research. And what that translates into is developing surveys in various forms that maybe people would access by various different forms of communication, because it's really important to get a lot of information. We don't know what people want. People might know what they want, but they don't necessarily know how to communicate it. And then in the long run, you need to decide who gets what, because we probably can't get everything everybody wants. So I see that as a really challenging issue, particularly with getting people to respond and how to reach them. Personally, I would love to have an indoor pool, and so that's a facility that attracts me. And with regard to collaboration, I collaborate with anybody that wanted to and evaluate the situation on a per case basis. And there'd have to be a way to develop a method for people to communicate that they want to collaborate on something. So I guess that means more surveys and things like that. Thank you.
And now for the last question, I'm going to keep it to 2 minutes also because we've heard some of this. And I'm going to skip my protocol, Tony. I'm skipping to Susan. You got to go last of the summaries last on Sunday, so you get to go first this time. So, this last question, communications from the Somersett board, Somersett management staff, Sierra Canyon management staff to the Somersett community seems inconsistent and incomplete pertaining to strategy, planning, investment spending, third-party activities, and so forth. So, what are your recommendations to improve the communications of the SOA to the community such that everyone is better informed, misinformation is reduced, and facts replace rumor?
Well, this is my favorite question, because each of you likes to receive communication in your own way. You all probably either have a child or a grandchild that likes text messages, and they sit next to one another and they text one another. So paper, digital, in person, there's all kinds of different ways. In the digital world, there's written, there's audio, there's video. Could there be more town halls? Could there be TV loops in the town center and Aspen Lodge? What if we had a quick video out there that there was a link to, that after each board meeting there was a highlight, like News at 10 kind of thing, so that you would know what actually happened? But each of these types of communication methods costs money. So it's important that we know how the majority of people want to be communicated with, and then we need to test the effectiveness. So another idea, would UNR have some interns or some communication courses where we could get the students to help us with this and get class credit for it? I used UNR students all the time in the past, or not UNR, college students in the past in different ways to be able to go about doing this. But the bottom line of all of this is communication is two ways. And the only way that we can have communication with all of our homeowners is if they actually will read, digest, etc. It's the job of the board to be transparent, and it's the job of the community to be interested enough to read the communications that are coming down and then respond. I'll tell you, as a public speaker, as I'm looking out, it's great to see people nodding their heads. I just saw this gentleman say, no UNR students. That's feedback to us, and I thank you for that.
The communication thing, she took away a little of my thunder. Gosh darn it. I know, I was in Boston on Sunday. I'm totally in with the UNR student dynamic, and using some of those young folks to assist. And this good person over here said that didn't work in the past. Well, maybe the leadership dynamic didn't compel a commitment. I have law clerks who volunteer their time, and so that would be a nice strategy to employ. It's vital that we get out to everybody, what method of communication do you most want? It's tough. It's real tough. In reference to our webpage, I apologize, I've never been on it. And I read things for a living, and I get to one paragraph and I fall asleep. So it's difficult for me to really see that we're doing anything good right now in reference to communication. And really, maybe I've been looking at too much Norman Rockwell or old movies, but I just don't. Why can't the communication be improved by simply reaching out to an individual? Not that you have to live, breathe the committee if you're privileged to serve, but what's the difficulty in making a call? Hi, John. Hey, Joe. Hey, Mary. Some stuff is happening. We're going to get together and have a little sit down. The room's open, the Aspen Lodge is open, the town center is open. Come on down, because I want to share things with you. Maybe it's not realistic, but I think it is. And so the communication dynamic, I think, can be improved with just a little bit of TLC. And to find out what format they're receptive to. As my colleague, I keep using the term colleague, as my opponent, I guess, or my friend, said, that would be vital. And it's a work in process. Thank you very much.
Like I stated before, I think we need to get an interactive website where the community can go on one place, one-stop shopping. You can see what's going on in the community. You can read what's out there. If you have any questions, you can put your questions down, and a member of the board can get back with you. If a lot of people have the same question, they can post the response on the website. I think we need to make the communication source available and easy to get to. Right now, it's not easy to get to. I've been working for a week, and I'm finally going to get on the Somersett website Friday. But it needs to be made easier to get on and let everybody have access. The other thing is, it's also incumbent on the residents to want to know what's going on. You need to go to the website, see what's going on, be informed, make informed decisions so that you can be involved in the community. And I think another area, right now, you have the TCTC, the Somersett Board of Directors, you have the Sierra Canyon Board of Directors. They're doing their own thing. The communication between the two groups is not very good. We need to have communication so the Sierra Canyon Board of Directors can see what's Somersett doing, what's new, what's coming down the trail here that's going to affect us. Communication is key, and it should start from the top and go down. Thank you for your time.
I'm wondering if it would be a good idea to set up a center at the town center staffed by a person if necessary, where somebody that, let's just say they don't go on the computer at home and they need assistance, they still want to know what's going on, some type of information that could be disseminated about the current website information. I think it would probably really need to be staffed by someone. But there are plenty of people that don't go onto the computer and, do find it challenging to go onto a website. Now, I've got two radical ideas for encouraging participation. One would be on a major issue where there's a percentage of voters required to pass things, maybe there should be a fine for not voting. It's an idea. And then, on the other hand, maybe there should be some sort of reward for voting, especially on major issues, like at the end of the vote, come down to the town center and have a glass of wine. Maybe, someone would donate wine for this and it really wouldn't cost us too much, but you know, it certainly is very important to get more people participating, and while it is their responsibility, I think they're gonna need a nudge. Thank you.
I think we've heard some interesting ideas here tonight. I certainly like the idea of having, you know, some access at the town center for people that are not as completely computer literate as some of us. I'm not running to defend the status quo, but I do believe that there is significant effort and resources being put into communications. The website appears to be reasonably current and contains a wide variety of information on many, many topics. We frequently receive Lauren letters, other emails, newsletters, and mailings. Surveys have been conducted, etc. Yes, there's room for further improvement. Nonetheless, with over 2,500 owners, this will always be a continuing topic for action. On the other hand, as Susan said, there is an element of personal responsibility. There is the we factor. The members must be actively engaged by attending meetings, logging onto the website, and reading the mailings and other information provided. The attendance tonight, we've got, as I said, over 2,500 members, and the attendance better here tonight than it was at the first the Sunday afternoon meeting. We've got 35 people instead of 25 people in the audience. One improvement that I recommend is to have moderated forums about issues like the proposed SGCC transaction, where both pro and con views are presented in a controlled environment. I believe that this would result in reducing misinformation, in facts replacing rumors, and in everyone being better informed. In part, I'm running for this position to be an instrument of collaboration and communication. By serving on both the Somersett Board and the Sierra Canyon Board, I believe that I can facilitate better understanding and more cooperation between the two associations. Thank you.
Before we get to closing comments, a couple of observations. Oh, Tony, I skipped you.
Maybe everybody knows what I'm going to say, I don't know. Okay. I think this issue of being able to communicate back and forth between all residents to the association, be it the board, the management company, and vice versa, is one of our most critical challenges. I can tell you that we started working on this last year, one of the very first things we did. And it is very tough. Some of the things people say, we've got a lot of owners. We do need to use, and we've been trying to expand to use every possible means of communication, because there is no single means that everybody tunes in on. The communications committee, you know, a lot of this sounds like it should be really easy. But for example, the communications committee has been working since last year and put in a huge amount of time just to try to make sure we had accurate email addresses for the people who gave us email addresses, which is only about a third of the people in the community. Okay, I mean, this takes a lot of time. What many people may not understand or realize is Nevada has more laws governing homeowners associations than any state in the country, which is surprising in its own. But there are a number of laws that affect how we have to communicate. It's not, we're not open to just saying, well, this is logical or this is the most efficient way. There are some times where we have to communicate in certain ways because of the law. And that complicates things. You know, one of the first things we found, as I alluded to earlier, is we've got 3 different systems for identifying who in fact is a resident. For an owner in Somersett, they don't talk to each other, and they don't always match up. Sometimes, because of the legal requirements, we are not allowed to communicate. You know, like for example, some of these things that came up before about maybe rewards for voting or something like that. We've got legal problems that would actually prevent us from doing that. And even a reception type thing, one of the biggest legal problems is we're not allowed to tell you who voted and who didn't, because that's confidential. So there's a lot, it's a difficult problem, but this is a critical problem for us.
Okay with that. Now I can make my council observations. I don't remember what they were. Can you imagine, we're in the midst of local and national elections. Can you imagine candidates having to do this 2 or 3 or 4 nights a week for 5 or 6 weeks?
5 or 6 months.
Yeah, well, we try to keep it 5 or 6 weeks. Unfortunately, we don't have a British system. Secondly, we're pretty lucky, because look at the great talent that we have to select from. There's a lot of smart people up here that are volunteering to work for us, so we're pretty lucky. So now I'd like to go into the closing statements, 2 minutes, starting with Tony.
Okay, well, thank you all again for coming. As I alluded to in the opening remarks, and we have talked about a lot of things that cover my views on why I'm running again and what I think is important. But basically, the reason I'm asking you to re-elect me again to the board is, as I've said, I think we've made a lot of progress. But because of the time it takes to do some of these things, and because of the vast number of challenges that we had when the first board came in to see what the situation is, I know things don't move as quickly as you would like, and I can guarantee you they don't move as quickly as any of the board members would like. So the reason I'm asking you to re-elect me is we've made this progress, but I think there's some very key things that we need to do to make sure that we don't lose the progress that we've made and that we can build on it. Some of the key areas that I really want to focus on next year is the implementation of some of these suggestions for planning, including joint committees, better communications. We have hired a consultant. The communications committee has hired a consultant that's going to come in and look at systems. We need to see what that's going to do. I truly believe, and I've identified a number of areas in my mind where we can move to the next level with the finance committee in terms of what they control, how they do it, how they provide oversight. I think there's many ways we can improve our budgeting process. And as we do all this, I think we can look forward to having a better running association over the years and do it in a way that doesn't cost us a lot. Somersett has one of the lowest assessments right now in northern Nevada. I don't know if you know Charlotte, the Silver Creek condos right across Mayan. When you leave, they're on the right as you go down the little thing right after you pass Mayan. 1 and 2 bedroom condos, they've got a small pool. Their assessment's $235 a month. Okay, so we have a lot we can improve on. It doesn't have to be terribly expensive, but it does take time. Thank you.
So during the opening, I said that we had moved 19 times, and we went back to Plan A. Our plans got changed along the way, but we came back to Plan A and moved to Reno. When we came back, we wanted to go up, and I wanted to go up into Galena Forest. And over the span of looking, we made the decision to buy here in Somersett, and we've never regretted that decision. My husband built me a Galena Forest in my backyard. Terry stole a little something, but I too think you have a wide array of candidates, and just think about that. You only needed 3 candidates, but you got 7 candidates who were willing to give of their time and apply for this job. Not to mention one that has already spent 35 to 40 hours a week trying to make all of this go, and he's going to run again. Boy, he's a glutton for punishment there, don't you think? But I would be honored to be chosen because I believe so strongly in this community and in the goodwill of people. I believe that the country club people, and I don't belong, the country club people want to build a strong membership. And I believe that Sierra Canyon and the rest of Somersett have the same goals. We want to retain our value of our homes. We want to enjoy communing with our neighbors. And we want to live a good life. So yes, I see life as a glass mostly full. That's kind of what I bring to the table. And I bring a lot of passion, you know, that's a word that's constantly used for me, and an attitude of that glass half full to this board. Thank you for the time this evening.
Ladies and gentlemen, in reference to what I can offer, it's real simple. It's a common sense approach. That's my skill set. And another skill set that I can offer the community is the loyalty to the members, the homeowners. And the last skill set I can offer as a member of the committee or the board is the ability to get things done. And the ability, you learn it if you're good at my craft. I can communicate, I can get a hold of people, which is a gift that's taken me a lot of years to gather. But that's what I would bring, is just a common sense approach. I mean, the bottom line is, I just want to help out. I mean, so whether I was on the flower direction committee or the speed bump committee, I would throw passion into it, try to get things achieved. I've got some marvelous folks here who have a sincere passion. I think I share that passion. But it really takes a lot of folks working together to make this stuff happen. And I mean, this is it, you know, I'm 52. I'm gonna hang out here until I throw in my chips. So, in the future, if I'm ever needed, it's just a phone call. Thank you.
Appreciate everybody coming tonight to hear what we all have to say. And I'd appreciate your vote to be a member on the board of directors. It would give me a chance to work with the other members of the board of directors to address your concerns and hopefully get closure on some of the issues that we have that are dividing the community right now. I think that anybody that knows me knows that when I take on a job, it's a challenge. Challenge is good, especially when you're old, retired, and have nothing else to do. So I'll have time to spend. Anybody wants to get a hold of me, can email me, they can call me, give me your problems. I'll take them to the board. Maybe other people in the community have the same problems. So we can address what's going on to make Somersett a good place to live for everybody. And everybody be, treated fairly and listened to, and we'll get things done to make this a better place. Thank you for your support.
Fellow residents, I hope that evaluating issues until the last moment is not regarded as treachery. It's really very important. When all is said and done, whatever the outcome, I support the community, number one. But I do believe in evaluating things until the last moment to make the best decision and have the best outcome. Please know that I'm very sincere in wanting the best for our community. As I've said, we own a home on the golf course. I have no desire to see the golf course fail, and I harbor no malice for anybody that golfs. But I do have every desire to see homeowner rights and funds zealously guarded. You just have to look to the events in the stock market over the last few weeks to realize that, a recession could come about again. We are not out of the woods and not safe. And, I happen to believe at this point that if we did not take out that $2.75 million loan, that would provide us with more security in some ways. I have every desire to see our board function with transparency and rule of law. I have every desire to take action as a board member for the enhancement of property values, for security and safety. I would like to be part of taking us from a developer-influenced board to a true homeowner board, and where homeowner issues are really the main activity. I believe this requires looking into and preparing for the future, both in good times and bad. And if elected, I would assume the watchdog position. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks again, Terry, for you and the committee for hosting the event, for all the candidates being willing to serve, and for you, the audience, for being interested in attending. I'm conversant with Somerset's governing documents, and as you know, the CCNR set standards that are much higher than the minimums that are set by government. It is the enforcement of these standards, higher standards, that add value to our homes and contribute to the higher quality of life we enjoy here in Somerset. I'm also very conversant with NRS Chapter 116, the state law that governs common interest ownership communities. I have the education, training, and financial, managerial, and technical background and experience that is relevant to the work at hand. I have served on the 2013-2014 Somerset Finance Committee, where I learned an enormous amount about our association and all of its financial aspects. Maybe most importantly, I will apply a strong dose of common sense in my decision making. I have the time and skills to constructively assist the board in dealing with and successfully resolving the issues we face. Please check out my website, joeforsomerset.wordpress.com, and I respectfully request your vote. Thank you for listening.
I'd like to again thank the candidates for their time tonight, and we are now open for questions from the,
My question relates to the due diligence period. According to the purchase agreement, the clock actually starts upon opening of escrow. And I was surprised to find out that opening of escrow was accomplished about 2 weeks ago. So the question that I have specifically for Tony is, do you expect that the due diligence activities will be completed and signed off on before the new board takes office? Or will the new board have the opportunity to participate in this process? So I'd appreciate if you could address that question, and for the rest of the members of the board to kind of indicate what their position is in this regard. Thank you.
To answer very directly, I don't see any way it's going to be finished before the new board takes over. Where we are on that right now, as you indicated, it just opened recently. That was done to, what we tried to do is not open it real early so we can have as much time for allowing people to read the contracts and stuff like that. We have gotten a title search now, and I'm telling you, I haven't seen all this stuff because the lawyers are heavily involved, where they're going through all the exceptions in the title to make sure that we're not getting something that we didn't think we were getting, or that we are getting what we are getting, what we did think we were getting. There are a lot of things to be done. A lot of them require outside expertise, such as surveyors, such as the title search thing. We've got people looking at the water permits to make sure they are in fact what we were told they are. Things like that. So there's no way it's going to be done before the new board takes place. So they will have a lot of influence and a lot of participation in it. It just barely started to get some of the key legal things, like the legal description stuff, because it takes a lot of time to get some of this stuff done. So that's the answer to your question was, will the new board be involved? Absolutely.
Sure. Again, just common sense. If you take office and you don't have time to complete this, you have an agreement that all the parties are pretty well signed on to and committed to. Therefore, if we aren't able to, the new board members or myself as a new board member, if I'm not satisfied with the due diligence, I would support an extension of time, and I believe that the other parties would agree with that. And otherwise, we would not do it. You would either be satisfied with your due diligence or you would not do the deal.
Anybody else?
Counselor, I appreciate two of your comments. One was common sense, and the other one was picking up the telephone. On Sunday, at the last meeting, we talked about the reverter rights and what would happen if the vote failed. Tony addressed that issue, and during that course of that discussion, he said that the board never contacted Somersett Development regarding a direct transfer to the SOA of the reverter rights because he didn't think that they would be receptive. It's exactly what you said. I wasn't there listening. Anyway, it appears that the only consideration that Somersett Development is getting is the release of liability. And they're not getting any of the money. Given that that's the fact, and this question goes to all of you, during the due diligence period, whether the agreement fails or passes, wouldn't it be a good idea to pick up the phone and call Somersett Development and find out if there's a way in which they would transfer the reverter rights and water rights directly to the SOA for release of the liability? Could be the release of liability in an amenity agreement, release of the reserves. Could be some money involved, but certainly not millions of dollars. The golf course has told us that, the golf course has told us that they don't need our money, so apparently they don't need it, but they want it. So why not open up discussions with SOA and Somersett Development directly?
Well, I think this
For each one of you, if you're elected, would you do that?
Well, yeah, I mean, in relation, that's okay. In relation to communication, my whole life is based upon foolish questions to jurors who are looking at my client to put him in prison forever. So I have no ego when it comes to asking pedestrian questions, and I think that's a gift, provided it's not stupid. But yeah, I would absolutely be proactive and reach out to people and ask the questions. Explain it to me. I don't give a damn if I've got a law degree. I don't understand this clause. So that's kind of my passion, is not necessarily conflict for conflict's sake, but I think it's a positive, yeah, to reach out and get these questions answered. And I think that everybody kind of agrees, and if it's language I don't understand, probably most people won't understand it, so explain it to me. So I guess my long-winded response is, yeah, make a call, find out, and go through the terms and conditions that make us all happy. And ask the silly questions. Well, what are you doing with my money? Well, what do I get? So I would, propose that. I like talking on the phone anyway, as you can tell, I like talking.
Okay, I think that the characterization you gave of the Sunday discussion was very abbreviated. What in fact happened is, prior to these negotiations with the golf course, I did talk with Blake Smith. He showed no indication of being willing to do anything. It wasn't until we started talking with the golf course that he started showing that he might be willing to contribute to this. Okay? I remind everybody that Blake Smith, if he really wanted to be a good guy and give us this stuff, he could have given it to the association long ago. He could have put it in the association's name. Just like he could have put the water facilities, the pumps and stuff, in the association's name rather than the country club's name. Now, I can't explain to you why he's done what he's done or why he didn't do something different. But I can tell you that until we got this tied into this potential deal with the golf course, he had not responded to any overtures that he would be interested in giving us anything like that.
This question is for all the candidates except for Joe and Tony. Because I know the knowledge. NRS 116 is very complex. As even the Somersett CCNRs in some areas are very complex. How conversant are you on the CCNRs and NRS 116? And if not, what will you do to get there?
Not very conversant at all, actually. In reference to CCNRs, I'm pretty conversant on those documents. The big booklet you get when you move here, right? It's written on, it's awful. It's awful. And when I was started my career as a public defender, I worked in the legislature to write laws for Washington County, so it could be a lot simpler. So I can converse on for the most part on that. The NRS, I don't have a damn clue. In reference to my efforts, if I'm a member of this body, I'll just read it. And hopefully, law school is good enough for me to understand the words they use.
As far as the CCNRs, I've read them, I understand them. They're kind of vague in some areas. The NRS 116 I've looked over. It's complicated. I've made an effort. I've contacted some people. There are classes available to go over it. They bring up the anything new that's coming up, they have access to before it actually becomes regulation. And I'll just read it. I'm sure I can understand it. They understood all the federal regulations for the past 15 years, and they're worse.
I've read most of the CCNRs, and I understand probably as much as anybody else does reading them. And basically, I would do things on a case-by-case basis as it came up. I would refresh. I would go back and look at the particular item and refresh on what it was and go from there. And with regard to the NRS, well, I have the NRS book, and I have read a number of them. I certainly have not read it cover to cover, but I've read it, and I know that I'd be able to understand it.
I've not only read the CCNRs, but I've had to apply them a couple times with my own home and had some experiences with bringing things to the board, so I can easily understand those. I have not read the other document, but that would be something that I would be doing over the next few weeks.
It's not a rebuttal, but I did notice that there's a 90-day period for new board members when they're supposed to have caught up on all this stuff and signed off on it. And I was just wondering, maybe Tony could tell me if everybody else has already has consistently signed off on that stuff in the past?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. But yes, everybody signs off and we all go through initial training. But to just confirm what Glenda said when she said that they are, I forgot the way you said it there, complicated. I was on a phone call this morning with the Nevada Ombudsman, and we were looking at parts of NRS and trying to understand it. And there were parts, and she's been working on this stuff for years and years and years. And we were looking and we read a certain passage, and I said, well, I'm not clear how to interpret that. And her ultimate response was, she didn't have a clue what it meant. It is not clear, and it is not at all an easy document to get through. So I'll say that all board members will end up spending a lot more time than you think trying to figure out what it actually says and what it means.
Somerset's kind of a cradle-to-grave community, and I think we heard about a homeowner who's 25 years old or something like that, and there are many up here that are into their 20th year of retirement. So there's no way we are going to serve everybody's needs, particularly from an entertainment standpoint. I'd like to see the board focused on quality of life type amenities as opposed to entertainment type amenities. We mentioned a gym, for example. We each have a gym here at Aspen and over at TCCC. There are many 4-page gyms if you don't like the one here. So I would like to comments of what are the quality of life issues that you'd like to address as board members?
That's an interesting question, quality of life. So I don't know that I could say right now what exactly I would do in terms of the quality of life, but safety is one of the things that I would concentrate on. Absolutely number one, in terms of, we live in a community that's behind gates, except those gates are never closed. So one of the things that we have been talking to the management company about is how do we get those gates closed. We bought in a gated community, we paid for a gated community. We want those closed, especially after construction is done. Another thing that bothers me is construction. The construction trucks that are always around, etc., and who is regulating what they're putting in the streets and making it impossible for us to get by those streets. So that is another thing. And quite honestly, one area in terms of quality of life is just sticking with the standards that we have in this community. I live in a community that, for the most part, people take care of their homes, their yards, etc. But every day when I walk my dog, I walk on a tremendous amount of dirt that goes across. Now I happen to know, here's where I've run across these rules, is that I can complain all I want about that, but I can't know what's going to happen to those homeowners that are supposed to be taking care of that. So even though I've complained about it, it still continues to happen. So those are things that we all want, because those are basic things that we need for quality of life in this community. And so I would start with those.
I think quality of life means many different things to many different people. And that, I'll go back to what I said earlier about all of Somerset being underserved by amenities. And one of the things I said in the first election was, I think we really need to get away from this idea that an amenity is only good if everybody uses it or most people use it. We are a very diverse community. When I say amenities, I talk very broadly, and this gets into quality of life, because to me, the landscaping is amenity. To me, the having quiet out here, being away from the city, that's part of the amenity. Having dark, starry nights, as opposed to being in the middle of a city light, that's an amenity. And so all those things are important, but what's important to different people are different things. And so I think what we really have to strive to do more of, as we've started to do, is try to understand all the different points of view that are in the community, what's important to various groups of people, and try to make sure that we have and continue to work on adding things that address all different kinds of groups, as opposed to trying to say, well, gee, if I don't use the daycare center in TCTC, I don't want to pay for it. That's part of what makes our community what it is. So I think we need to actually think about breaking things down into smaller pieces so that there is one or two or three or four things that everybody really likes, even though they're different things, rather than say, well, gee, if we can't get 85% of the people to use the pool or use, the TV room, let's get rid of the TV room type thing. I think we need to cater to different people for different reasons, and that ultimately creates a quality of life, because everybody's interpretation of that is something different.
I guess to me, quality of life is to kind of minimize irritations, among other things. But just a quick list is safety. I've had experience in other communities where we use off-duty police officers at random hours for patrols in the community. Safety in the crosswalks. I mean, it's been considered by the finance committee and the board. There's the ultimate grand plan where we have these big flashing lights anytime somebody wants to cross the street. In the meantime, some common sense solutions. Salt Lake City, they put a little bucket of orange flags. You pick up a flag when you're going to cross the street, and it alerts both the person who's picking up the flag, but it also is, helpful to oncoming motorists. I think exercise opportunities, again, the aerobics and the aquatics for both our respective facilities, and we serve our communities in different ways. I think those are important. Landscaping, I agree, is an amenity, and again, that kind of gets back to irritations, is dead trees are not attractive. Water running down the gutters is not, at least it irritates me. I think it irritates some of the other people here as well. Enforcement of CCNRs, I think, is an absolute. You signed on, that's why we bought in this community, or one of the reasons we bought in this community is that we're assured that things are going to be maintained to a certain standard. And, dogs barking incessantly, construction that was mentioned, the maintenance of homes and yards. These are important, all the visual things that we have to look at. And so I'm a strong believer in strict enforcement of the CCNRs. Fiscal responsibility. I don't think anybody needs to be surprised by special assessments or, I've been called by a couple of people, but, okay. The list goes on.
Yeah, the list does go on. But what we need, I think, for most people are like standard government type functions, like definitely providing safety, providing some gathering places, opportunities for exercise, and standards of maintenance for our shared facilities and enforcement of home maintenance. And, that's sort of like a governing body, so for any place, so that's what I think we need.
Most of the issues have been covered, but quality of life means different things to different people. We have a community here, Somersett, from the young to the old. Two things that I can think of that everybody needs for the quality of life: safety and security. Doesn't make any difference how old you are, that everybody needs that. The other things, as was mentioned before, CCNRs need to be enforced, and the community standards. The other thing that people probably don't think much about, that really bugs me, is the people who don't pick up after their dog. You go into common areas, and there's piles everywhere. We get emails all the time, pick up after your dog, pick up after your dog. Well, it doesn't happen. And I think in the Sierra Canyon area, one of the reasons, it's really not an excuse, but there's not that many cans for dropping off the dog dirt. That could be looked into. But quality of life, two things that affect everybody: safety and security. Thank you.
We need a fecal fine.
Yeah.
Just give me what I bargained for in the CCNRs. I absolutely do not agree with strict enforcement. I think enforcement is valid and it's viable, and that's why I'm here. But I also think it has to be creative and understanding. If the gosh darn fire pit that you signed up for is 10.5 feet instead of 10, that's okay. So I think that that's what we need to look at. And in reference to just the common sense, give me what I bargained for. Let me know what this tribe wants over here. Let's keep that tribe happy. They want more walking space. They don't need a motocross track. Right. If this tribe over here wants a motocross track and a skeet and everybody around within a half mile is okay, fine. But really, not to belittle what we're trying to achieve here, but it's just the common sense. Give me what I signed up for, but be creative with the responses. If we're outside the parameters of the CCNRs, take it easy. Maybe even talk to the neighbor. How's that fountain? He scheduled, he requested a 5-foot fountain, but it's 6 feet. Are you okay with that? So that's kind of what life is organic. We live in an organic world. Things change constantly. Just be ready to roll with it and just reach out. How you feeling? How you doing? How's your neighbor? Everything okay? And then go from there.
Well, we're at our 2-hour mark, and unless there's really a pressing question, we have 2 questions. Are they both pressing?
I'm sorry.
May
ladies first.
Mine is not as pressing, more of a suggestion. Has the board ever considered making the lap pool an adult pool only? Have it open till like 11 o'clock for swimming lessons, and then the adults can sit and read a book and relax. I think that would be great.
Yes, I support that. That's my whole platform now. Give that to me.
No, actually, your question, yes, in fact, it started off that way. It was changed, as I understand, because there was a lot of requests to change it from people that, were crowded out at the other pool, and they wanted family stuff. But I think that's the kind of thing that the board should always be willing, and this board anyway, is willing to consider. People have ideas like that because things do change and they go back and forth. We're also looking at options for possibly temporary or movable covers to make it a 12-month-a-year type pool. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on. If I can throw in one thing real quick, I do appreciate all the comments on safety and security. We have looked at that, and it turns out Somersett is the second safest police district in all of Reno. The safest is Meadowbrook Mall, because it's its own little police unit. But outside of Meadowbrook Mall, we actually have the lowest crime statistics anywhere in the area. That doesn't mean there isn't more we can do, but I think it's important to keep this in perspective. And by the way, we have money in next year's budgets for the crosswalk lights, the cameras, and active speed signs.
Well, let's relax on the cameras. Just slow down. Big Brother's watching us enough.
Last question.
My question requires simple yes or no answer, so I won't take much of your time. I did finally, after much, it has to do with communication. I did, after much digging and searching, find the legal document that was referred to at the last meeting on the website. I was not aware of it. The board didn't communicate it to anyone, and it was not posted under legal opinions where you might find something. But having read it now, and noted that there are several unsubstantiated statements there, some of which relate to the developer, that hopefully will be addressed during the due diligence. Will you, as a board member, post due diligence documents as they evolve, or will you wait until after the contract is signed before informing homeowners what the due diligence resulted in?
Didn't sound like a yes or no answer to me. But yes, I would post them as they come in. I don't see any reason to delay. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
I would as well.
Yes, we've been posting. The tricky part of that is if they're in progress and they're moving, how often do you want a post? That's the hard thing to do, but as we get actual real results, I do think they should all be posted.
I would certainly support that. Frequent posting.
I would also support that. And here again, if everybody can get to the website, they'll be able to see it. So we go back to the communications. If you can get there, the information will be available.
Of course, all comes anything that affects us. So.
All right, with that, I'd like to thank you for attending. I'd like to thank our candidates. And prepare to vote.